Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Quantum Leap Season 1, Episode 17. Great episode, a lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So, Ben's latest leap involves him taking over as a stewardess named Lois, right, on a plane in like 1970, like 71, I think. Immediately my brain was like, you don't think this is going to be like a DB Cooper thing? That's what I was thinking for a second there. Would be the most, there was a recent, obviously, I'll go ahead and talk about it because it's not even like a real thing. It's only like a bit, but people thought probably like the Loki DB Cooper thing was going to be a bigger thing than it was. It's like, no, it was just it was a small bit in the show. And I was wondering if they were going to I was like, oh, could Ben be in a leap that's connected to the DB Cooper thing, but it ended up being unrelated. Sadly, he finds out that this plane that he's on is about to crash. Well, it eventually crashes and kills like the 300 some people on the plane. This whole leap happens at a very interesting time on multiple fronts. One, Ben is not as trusting of people in this one, even though he had, obviously trusting people has kind of screwed him over in the past, but the one I can think of, it's like the one with Justin Hartley with the bounty hunter, but that wasn't even necessarily trusting her. You were just doing a job. You just underestimated her. It turned out she was like a very big deal drug boss. So it's like, that's not, but it's the Martinez thing really because he has been so trusting of people and relying on people, and now it's like he has technically relied on Martinez twice before, but both times, well, for one, he didn't know Martinez was Martinez by the time the first time happened around. Second time, didn't realize Martinez was there when he helped you out. So it's a little bit different in those situations, and because he has helped you out in the past, and you needed his help with the previous leap, let's also not forget, you were super close to death. He, straight up attempted to murder you. So that's understandable why you'd have trust issues after a situation like that, coming so close to death. So, and even, Addison being like, yeah, I wasn't even worried for a second. We know that's not true. She knows, they're trying to make light of it, but we all know that wasn't the case. But another element that makes this leap complicated too is they can't use Ziggy because of what Janice said last episode. Magic tells Ian, we kind of have to shut it down. But for Ian, it's like, yeah, we could do a lot of stuff without Ziggy, but Ziggy helps out a lot. Ziggy helps with the probability, allows us to narrow in on Ben a lot faster because of Ziggy. Otherwise, we have to handle it our way. Granted, the internet is at a pretty good enough place where they can find stuff on their own using Googling and stuff, but Ziggy makes it a lot easier. But it is also this is Ian's baby. So it means a lot to Ian, because for Ian, Ian even explains it later. It's like, I put a lot of who I am into this project when we brought Ziggy back online. I even love the whole thing of no, I'm sorry guys, I'll just be over here pulling out the knife in my back. I'm just I love how dramatic you are, Ian. I love Mason. Is it Mason Park Alexander, or is it Mason Alexander Park? I love them as Ian, because once again, other than I was about to say Lucifer, as obviously it's connected, but other than because the Sandman was my first introduction to Mason as Desire, and I was like, oh, I really like you, and obviously in season 2, hopefully we'll get more, but it's this is the most time I got to spend with Mason as a character, and I love them as Ian, so, but yeah, this was an interesting, once again, leap where it's just kind of having to deal with people getting a little handsy on the plane, the pilot kind of talking down to you because do you know this about a plane? And I love that Addison helped bail Ben out. It's it's this, and this. And that pilot was kind of he was kind of miffed at Ben showing him up and stuff. But, also having to deal with that Corey kid, I was wondering but it's interesting because they were giving too much personality to him that the kid was oh, can you make this again? Oh, that was actually right the first time. This time you kind of made it with too much yada, yada, yada. Oh, later on I need this, and this. It's well, I know it's back here, so I know exactly where it is, so I'll get it myself. It's Corey, sit down. The world doesn't revolve around you. It's something you kind of got to learn the hard way or something like that. Because it turns out Corey, the plane they're on, his dad owns the company or whatever that makes him, or he's connected to the planes and stuff like that. So he's on a trip with, was it Luis? Was that her name? She's the person that was an ex-cop who's essentially his bodyguard. So she kind of goes on the trips with him and stuff. But the whole situation is like, oh, the plane is going to crash and stuff. But at first, it's like, oh, was it like pilot error? Well, it wasn't pilot. Well, because the pilot at the time, it's like, especially because it's the 70s, the conversation about mental health once again isn't what it should be. I mean, obviously back then, obviously it's a different conversation now. But he kept it low key, and so he would basically handle it off outside of his insurance because he didn't want it to be on like his like work stuff, payments and stuff like that he was paying from his work and using his insurance to like pay for it. So it's like he did it off books so no one would find out, but he was suffering through depression and stuff. And so they initially thought he's the reason why the plane crashed. Turned out, no, it wasn't him. In fact, turns out him and one of the other, I guess, backup pilots died. The only one left alive was co-pilot. I guess that should have been suspicious. That it's just like, oh, you just happen to be the only one that didn't drink the tea. He was like, oh, I was just, or the coffee. He was like, yeah, I was waiting on it. So, but Ben, because of his trust issues, because of the whole Martinez thing, it's like, how do I know I won't end up trusting the wrong person? And so Addison's like, right, you got to trust someone. Trust the cop that's on board. Like, she's here to protect Corey. Turns out she's part of this because her and the co-pilot are in this together. It's actually sad because both of them are after like a big payday because it's like, right, both of them have kind of worked for Corey's dad, and it's like he's never treated us or anyone else right, especially her, because it's like, right, she worked with his looked after, like, baby was basically a powerful she's basically a highly trained babysitter essentially. And I guess as like him, the co-pilot, he got passed up for like the pilot position or whatever like multiple times or something like that, so they were never like really well regarded. So this is their way to kind of stick it to him, Corey's dad. Obviously they weren't expecting things to kind of escalate to what it was. They just wanted to, like, pay a ransom, and then they were going to disappear. They ended up hiring like 2 mercenaries to help, but things went super sideways. But I appreciate the twist that, like, once again, I want to say her name was like Luis or something like that, but like that she was the bad, because the whole point of like, okay, because you're like, okay, Addison's telling him to trust this cop, but he's not going to until he does, and everything's going to work out then, because it's about a lesson of teaching Ben to trust people, which, yes, that is the main lesson of this episode. But I love that it turns out Ben was right not to trust her because she's the bad guy in this episode. It's like, oh, I actually love that twist, making it like, no, his suspicion, his lack of trusting people actually benefited him this time because she wasn't the person to trust. So that was interesting. Because initially he was wondering if it was like one of his fellow stewardess, like the one in particular he was really close with, because it turns out, because it obviously doesn't delve back into it, but basically her boyfriend has connections to the RIA, so they're wondering maybe she does as well, and maybe there's some correlation there with like maybe the IRA was trying to like take over this plane, like some political statement. But it turns out she wasn't a part of it, and especially because her and Lois were friends, she actually got Lois this job, so Ben kind of screwed the pooch on that just a little bit. So, but when the time came, they ended up like systematically taking down the other guy. The first mercenary guy they took down because Ben ended up, I love that he's helping out the lady, like, oh yeah, like your insulin. She's like, I already took my insulin. Ben kind of gives her a wink, and she had picked up that guy. Ben had also picked up that guy's what was it? He was popping some pills and drinking, and I do love that he was out the entire episode, so he had no idea what happened until he woke up at the end and everyone's clapping because the plane landed, and he's almost like, wait, what? He missed literally everything, the whole plane takeover and everything. But I love the twist of Ben being like, well, the guy's like, no, you drank the water first, and Ben's reluctant. I'm like, you didn't drink the water, did you? It was like, well, no, of course you didn't, because it was like, you knew there might be a chance he'd make you drink it. So you spray the water in his face and like hit him with the syringe, because it's not only insulin to knock him out, but also like you dumped a whole bunch of those pills in there too. So it's like, okay, good. So I was like, man, that once again, twist upon twist. The second guy wasn't even Ben. It was like a united front, combined front of everyone on that side of the plane. Like the main person that Ben had, one of the people Ben had talked to like earlier in the episode, like shoved the cart towards him, got shot. But like other people, like one of the other ladies there, like came and just like knocked the guy out. Sadly, he had fired some shots, and that causes issues with the I don't think it was the hydraulics, but there was something that basically got messed up because of those gunshots. And so Ben was trying to give Corey a prep talk before then about, like, you know, it's like, right, sometimes you trust people and they let you down or something like that. And it's like, wow, you are horrible at pep talks. It's like, I'm usually better at this, but I'm not really in a position to kind of be giving pep talks about, like, trusting people because I'm having issues with it myself. But Addison convinced Ben, it's like, right, your instincts told you to trust Martinez, and you were right to. Yes, he betrayed you, but it got you what you needed to do. Like, you were able to complete that leap because you trusted. And yes, you were right not to trust Luis, and it worked out in that regard too. So, but I can tell your gut is telling you right now you need help, that you need to trust someone. So listen to it. And so ultimately he works with Corey, and they end up, like, kind of gassing and knocking out the co-pilot and Luis. And now it's like, right, we need to, like, you know, be able to help with this plane situation. Because it isn't just, like I said, it wasn't just, Ben had his trust issues that he was dealing with, but Ian also had their issues with, hey, once again, I kind of put everything I have into, Ziggy kind of represents everything that Ian's done as part of this project. Once again, it's their baby, and so it's like, it kind of feels like shutting down a part of themselves in this regard, but Jen's like reminding them and like, no, like, kind of, we choose a you over Ziggy any day of the week because it's like only you are able to, you know, kind of have more, I'm butchering it, but it was kind of like, right, we need a you, like, you are so much more capable than like a Ziggy, because, you know, Ziggy's an AI or whatever, but you are the person, like, who you are, it's the genius that you are, is what we need. So I do love that when it came time to, like, fly the plane, obviously gave a really good typical Ben speech to Corey, and it's like, now that's a good pep talk. So Corey went back and did what he needed to do, and Addison showed up with with Ian, and it's like, wait, aren't you Ian? And it's like, wait, you remember me? It's like, yeah, isn't our duet karaoke song Under Pressure? And it's like, when we get back, tell Jen she owes me $5. It's like, so it's like remembering magic before Jen, even though they were working the case together. And it's like, hey, Ian has only been here for a little bit. Jen spent an entire episode with Ben, and it's like, oh, you remember Ian immediately. And I love that we were able to finally get, like, some time with Ian and Ben, like, on their own to some extent, because we do know, like, they've made it pretty clear, like, Ian's like Ben's best friend, and we haven't had opportunity to really do that. I mean, it also plays into the fact is Addison hasn't really allowed anyone else into the chamber because she's been the one wanting to stay by Ben's side, understandably. But them kind of arguing back and forth about everything, especially when Ian was like, I'm still not forgiving you for coming into, like, the quantum accelerator. It's like, I don't think not right now is the time to really be doing that. It's like, you know, it's like, yeah, but if the plane crashes, I won't be able to argue with you about it. It's like, that's not funny. It's a little funny, a little bit. And it's like, yeah, but according to Addison, it was future you that told me to do it in the first place. Ian's like, well, this isn't the time to be pointing fingers. I love that back and forth. And it's like, yeah, because of you, like, our trivia squad has kind of fallen severely under. I mean, it's like, you are, you're this particular person in the group. Oh, you're sports. I'm music, obviously. And Addison is pop. It's like, no, I thought Jen was sports. It's like, no, Jen thought this and that. And it's like, they're having such a beautiful moment together. I'm just like, I love it so much. It's so good. I was like, oh man, I love being able to kind of see their friends, because this is our first time getting to see it in the show. So I thought that was so, especially because that's what it was about, what Ian was kind of struggling with the most, of realizing, like, hey, like, what Ian was struggling with the most was, hey, I told Ben, some future version of me came back in time and told Ben to do all this, but the fact is that I was willing to do it behind all your guys' back and not tell you. It kind of, you know, for Ian, it kind of sucked. Right, because it was, what was it? Because Jen was trying to convince Ian to separate themselves from Ziggy, but it's like, oh yeah, it's like separate for an artist to separate themselves from their music, even though people tell them it sucks. At your 11th grade, talent show or something, Jen was basically like, we will unpack that some other day or something. Like, right now, let's focus on this. So, But ultimately, it ended up working out in the end, and I also thought it was so dope. Once again, it's just like it's like right because Ben only has one or two more leaps that Ian's aware of. So it's like, hey, just make sure you come back to us. I know like things that you're out here saving the world and everything. I appreciate that, but it's just like like please make sure you come home because obviously we miss you like crazy. And I thought that was beautiful. And I thought it was so interesting too. Addison had this point when it was all said and done. We find out about Corey. Basically, Corey like took over like taking like flying flights like that because he did some simulation stuff when it was beforehand, but didn't really know how to fly a plane. But now he does. He ultimately ended up retiring present day, and now he's teaching. Luis ended up getting to meet the president and stuff, and obviously got rewarded for everything. I forgot what they said about the stewardesses. Obviously, everyone involved in the crime, all four, were locked up and are still currently in prison because of all of it. So, but Addison brought up an interesting point. It's like, right, we always know the aftermath of everyone else. It's just Ben is always the biggest question mark because it's like, right, where did Ben land next? Because even Ian's like, we may never know exactly where Ben is at first. We can't always follow Ben to where he is and know exactly, but we'll always know roughly when he is. We just won't know the specifics until we fully calculate it when he lands. So. And but this time they weren't able to even track where Ben was because Ben is now completely out of their range because Ben has always been in the past except for this one time. Now Ben's in the future. It's still unclear, but we see that he's at Quantum Leap and it's like massively destroyed. It looks like it's kind of burned and stuff, and runs into an older Ian. And it's like, Ian, it's like, Ben, it's good. I've been waiting a long time for you. It's like, I'm in the future. So that's why they can't track any form of where Ben is. I mean, this is well beyond the scope of, Ziggy and stuff. So, also, I should have brought this up earlier, but I talked about it a little bit about having to shut Ziggy down, but I didn't go into the whys because the reason why they're saying like, right, Ziggy's the mole, because I was thinking it was because like, oh, is Ziggy going to be like some rogue AI thing? And when it's all said and done, it's giving Martinez's orders type of situation. But it's like, no, at least it doesn't seem like that's the case. They're simply saying, right, Ziggy is recording and keeping contact with like all this information or conversations. So Martinez is using the same Ziggy from in the future. So all this stuff that we're doing right now it's already happened. All that information is in Ziggy. So all they have to do is access the records in Ziggy and they can find all of this. So that's why Martinez has always been a step ahead of them. So that's why they needed to shut down Ziggy. I didn't really go into that this episode. So I wonder, is that something that's going to be remedied soon or what? Or is that something that, like I said, will that still eventually go down the rogue AI route? I was thinking it would, or once again, is that just me reading way too much into it? Either way, when it's all said and done, the next episode is the season finale, so it's definitely going to be interesting, especially now that Ben's in the future, what happens next, especially because Ian was like, yeah, Ben has one or two leaps, and what does that mean when this is all said and done? Will Ben, be stuck just like, oh God, I'm blanking on his name. Scott Bakula's character in the original series. Will he kind of be lost in time like him, or will this all be resolved? Like, you feel like because there's no way you can just have for a season finale. There's no way everything's going to be like resolved. But where we end up is definitely going to be interesting now that it's all said and done, because this is all about completing this mission, but it might be step one in a larger thing. Maybe this goes beyond even what Ben recognized or even what Ian knew. I mean, maybe Ian only told Ben some of it because, or maybe, once we're changing everything, the future is going to change too, so it's going to end up being a big question mark that it's like, right, you're prepared for everything Ian prepared you for, future Ian prepared you for, but beyond that, it's a big question mark once things change, what the aftermath of it's going. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. I'm so curious to see what happens in the season finale, how ultimately all of this ends up playing out. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.